Yeah, 39 days in charge ended with a brutal 39-word statement. Gabby, we'll talk about Postecoglou, obviously.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the owner, first of all, though. Doesn't he carry the can almost entirely for sacking Nuno and replacing him with a man whose style of football was so unsuitable for the squad that they'd assembled?
100%. And I feel that it's a bit of karma for Marinakis. I feel that he's done fantastic things for Nottingham Forest, and Nottingham Forest fans will love him. But to sack Nuno Santo, who has done amazing things with this group of players, got them into the Europa League. You know, yes, it was a bit of a poor start. You fell out with him maybe because of some of the words he says in the media. But to get rid of him and then to bring in Ange, whose style of football is not suited to the players that they've got, and also 22 Premier League defeats last season. Yes, he won the Europa League, but he's short-minded, Marinakis. He's thought, he won the Europa League, he can win it with Nottingham Forest, I want the glory. And he's not thought about it. And now we're hearing reports of Sean Dyche might be the favourite to get the job. You know, if you're Sean Dyche, you know in your mind, if you keep Nottingham Forest up, that's you done. You're going to be gone. Someone else is going to come in. So I think the owner's got a lot to answer for, and it's a bit of karma, really. If you're Nuno Santo, you're probably having a little giggle at home, aren't you? Like, you deserve that, don't you, mate?
Well, I mean, from Postecoglou's point of view, I'm not sure he ever had the chance with the players that had been recruited to play a completely different system. But you have to ask the question, Gabby, did he not learn anything from his Tottenham experience? They didn't keep a clean sheet, and they are still conceding goal after goal after goal from set plays.
It's just crosses, isn't it? You looked at the game on the weekend, Jeff, and Achimon, great header, but who's marking him? When the ball actually comes in, they've got enough numbers back, Nottingham Forest, but in the end, it's 3-on-2. Sangara isn't marking anybody. Then Murillo and Milenkovic have got 3. So they're picking the player up, and then Achimon comes through, unmarked, heads in the back of the net. That wouldn't have happened last season. They were so strong. Every cross come in, Murillo, Milenkovic away. This season, they're looking like a total different team defensively.
Yeah. Look, he's a great character, but is he a great coach?
I don't think so, mate. Listen, done great things at Celtic. Fantastic winning Europa League at Spurs, but 22 Premier League defeats, 8 without a win so far, before he got sacked, at Nottingham Forest. Just doesn't look right, Jeff, to change the formation. Didn't name the same team twice.
No.
In 8 games, which is wild.
Made at least 3 changes in every game.
Exactly. So it's a bit like Chris Wood done so fantastic for Nottingham Forest last season. Was it 20 Premier League goals? And he can't get a game. How we know he's playing in front of him yesterday, who's not played under Ange Postecoglou this season. And then he's off at half-time, and he's Igor Jesus on, and he's Chris Wood on after 65. It just seemed a bit shambolic, didn't it, at times?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at that game, obviously he left Chris Wood and Hudson-Odoi on the bench. He left the likes of McAtee and Amari Hutchinson and Callum Wende, big signings, out of the squad altogether. So he's, in many respects, it was brutal the way it happens, and I know you don't approve of it. Brutal the way it happened, but he was almost the architect of his own downfall.
I think when you're leaving those players out, and Bakwa as well, that total, Jeff, is 100 million of summer signings you've left out the matchday squad. And Hudson-Odoi, probably your best attacking player 1v1, who done really good when you come on the bench. If you're the owner, you're probably looking at this and you're like, this isn't looking great. It's not working. It has to end, which is, no one's got a problem with him losing his job, because even some people say 5 games is a bit harsh, but it wasn't working. Tough games to come as well. Next game is Bournemouth away after the Porto game on Thursday in the Europa League. So you don't fancy Nottingham Forest at Bournemouth away. But I just didn't like 90 minutes after a game when I've been in change rooms where the manager's probably just left the change room, Jeff, gone into the coach's room, probably found out, you lost your job. And the reports that he was seen heading to the car park with his backpack on. I don't know, I just thought he could have waited. And I know people will say that, he could have done the media and then got sacked afterwards and it would look bad on him. But 90 minutes after a game just says to me that the owner, after 65 minutes, left his seat to go and make sure it was all ready to sack Ange.
Yeah. Again, I mean, I looked at the side against Chelsea, and look, they did have chances. I'm not sure whether that would have affected his long-term future. But when you look at that side against Chelsea, you mentioned some of them already. Morata, Murillo, Milenkovic, Elliot Anderson, Gibbs White, Douglas Luiz, Matt Sells. I mean, it was a decent side, wasn't it, on paper? Do you think the players were not buying into Ange and the new style?
Well, when you see so many changes, Jeff, how can you? And like you says there, when we go on about they haven't got the players to play this sort of football, when you look at the squad they've got, Douglas Luiz coming in, who's the ball-playing midfielder. Anderson is, as well, ball-playing midfielder. So is Morgan Gibbs-White, Hutchinson, McAtee, Ndoye, Hudson-Odoi. They've got so many options. Wood, Igor Jesus, they've got so many options to probably play anyway. But when you watch that, you didn't know what they were doing, and they went to the 5 at the back, and you're like, you're still conceding chances with 3 centre-halves in there. I mean, Igor Jesus scored 2 goals against Real Betis away, and then dropped on the weekend. It's like you need to give players a bit of like game time after they have a great performance. Keep playing them. They don't need a rest so early into the season, Jeff. September, October, you don't need to be really rotating too much. Players can play 2-3 games in a week for the first month, 100%.
Is Ange done in terms of Premier League management?
Oh, yeah.
Now?
Yeah. Ange, 100% done. Because everyone would have been shocked that he actually got the Forest job after what happened at Spurs in the Premier League. And to get the sack after 5 Premier League games, second shortest managerial run in Premier League history. I think if Ange gets a job, he will be abroad, maybe international team. But I'm sure his family and his young kids are still in Australia. He can go back home now, enjoy some family time, because the stress of his last 2 jobs can't be good for him.
No, completely agree. And the question then is, and you mentioned Sean Dyche, who next for Nottingham Forest? And again, you touched on it. I asked the question, who the heck is going to want to work for an owner like this?
Managers that have been out of work for a little bit. I mean, there will be a queue, Jeff. Managers are going to want to come back into work, but they were talking to Mancini, weren't they?
Yeah.
That didn't progress because Mancini's probably had words and thought, this isn't for me. I know we're gonna fall out after a day.
But again, he is a man who's been out of work for a while.
Exactly, but he's probably thinking, I'm going to fall out with this owner. Sean Dyche's probably thinking, yeah, I fancy getting back in, big club, I can keep them up. I might only be there till the end of the season, and he might want to bring someone else in because he wants a bigger manager in place. But if I was a manager, I wouldn't go anywhere near it.
Yeah.
Because he looks like the sort of manager we saw with Nuno, didn't we, last season? When he come on the pitch. Was it the last couple of games of the season? And he come and had a go at him. And he's always in the tunnel when the cameras are on the games. And he's in the tunnel. Villa's owners, you don't see. The best owners, you don't see, Jeff. They put their money down and they're in the back room and you don't see him. He wants to be seen.
The one thing you would say about Evangelos Marinakis, by the way, though, in his defence, is he has put his money in, and look at what he's turned Nottingham Forest into. Ignore the league table just at the moment, but they are back in Europe.
Oh, of course.
That's down to him and his financial backing.
100%, but just does that mean that you have to be seen? Does that mean you have to come out onto the pitch after games? Does that mean you have to sack a manager 19 minutes after a game? Does that mean you have a little falling out with Nuno Santo, who's done a fantastic job for you, and you sack him because you're stubborn and you've got that power trip? Yeah, something about him, Jeff, I'm not really keen. And if I was a manager, I mean, I'll negotiate a hell of a contract.
Yeah.
It gives me a massive clause to get every single penny if I get sacked, because you know you're going to.
Yeah, and there's no doubt that you see the other names that are being banded around. Marco Silva at Fulham, and I asked my question straight away.
Don't.
Why would he?
No way. No, what? You know you got 5 games? You've got 5 Premier League games? You could go in now, Sean Dyche, and it doesn't work after. He
couldn't do it again. He couldn't have a third manager out before Christmas.
Why not, mate? Why not? Ange's got 5 games.
Yeah.
And yes, the Sunderland game at home, was it the lost 1-0? That's a shocker. But there's no shame in losing away to Newcastle. Do you know what I mean? So some of the games that they have lost, there's no shame in them. They're not being thumped in any games where you're like, oh, it's 5 or 6, you've got to go. So if I'm a manager going in, Sean Dyche, better get a result at Bournemouth.
Yeah. Look, Nottingham Forest fans won't agree, but one thing is for sure. The Premier League won't be quite as interesting a place without Ange.
I know, we're going to miss Ange, aren't we?
Because he is a massive character. But I'm with you, Gabby. I doubt that we'll see him back in the Premier League again. In fact, I'm pretty certain that we won't.